Welcome to the VetFarm Network Podcast, where military veterans and their families explore how to build profitable, successful, and rewarding lives in agriculture. Today's guest is Emily Kring, a military veteran and an agriculture and natural resources regional educator and extension veteran farmer coordinator with Purdue University. Emily works directly with veterans, connecting them to agricultural education, resources, and support through extension. She's also been working closely with us on the Veterans in Farming Indiana State Meeting, and today we're talking about the role of extension, AgrAbility, and the ways veterans can find support as they explore opportunities in agriculture. Emily, can you start off by sharing a little bit about your role with Purdue Extension and what you do as the Extension Veteran Farmers Coordinator, and sort of what does a day look like for you?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. Like you said, I'm the Ag and Natural Resources Regional Educator in East Central Indiana. So cover 6 counties in that kind of regional East Central portion of the state. And that looks anything from talking about wildlife and different resources for pollinators and water quality and how to manage those things in your life and in your day to day. And also forestry too. So kind of a catch-all with natural resources there. But then my role as the Extension Veteran Farmers Coordinator is to essentially just bridge extension and AgrAbility by supporting both extension personnel and veterans with community resources. Extension educators are all throughout the state, and so making sure that that connection is made with educators in counties with veterans is super important. So we know that veterans are scattered across Indiana in different pockets and places. And so my role is kind of just to make sure that extension is serving them the best that we can. So it's a day-to-day kind of looks like fielding veteran questions. Anyone that reaches out, typically extension educators will kind of loop me in and see how we can serve them, if we're serving them well, and even connect them with other AgrAbility team members. Joe Ricker and Ed Sheldon and Darren Chapman with AgVets are people I typically lean on a lot to bring veterans in to talk with them as well. So it's great having a team behind me with AgrAbility to help veterans, and then also to raise awareness of and increase veteran access to our extension resources is a huge component of my work and kind of what we're talking about today with the state meeting. So we'll get into that, I'm sure.
That's awesome. Well, you have a great team, and AgrAbility's meant a lot to our family. So it's an incredible resource that I hope more veterans can use and learn more about, especially their toolkit that's online on their website. Like if anybody's having back problems and needs to figure out a way to make their PTO on their tractor more accessible, there's so many cool ideas that you can just pick up and do yourself or get assistance with. But so you bring both extension experience and then your background as a military police officer in the National Guard, including your deployment overseas. How has your military experience shaped the way you approach this work with veteran farmers?
Yeah. So, my deployment was during COVID. So, man, what a time for everyone. But both of those things, a deployment and time during COVID, were extremely isolating and really just emphasized the need for people in general, but specifically veterans to have community. And so coming back to the States, I realized that was one thing I wanted to bring into my extension work was encouraging veterans to access those extension programs to help combat that isolation, especially programs like Master Gardeners, being able to have a network of people that are like-minded, similar to the military, where you're all reaching a common goal, whether that is gardening or whether it is just learning in general. And so having a network of people is so important. And we see that outlined in many facets of our lives. So that's been super fun for me to kind of see that as a thread throughout my time in the military, but also as an extension educator. So I've appreciated being able to tap into that and kind of, it's been a passion of mine to combat that isolation and bring people together. So
And as you alluded to, this has been described before as sort of a dream job for you because it's so people focused. What have you learned so far about the needs of veterans? What do you see coming up sort of on a day to day basis, and especially when they're beginning farmers, or maybe they already have a small farm and they're looking to add a farm store or a CSA and kind of take the next step in profitability?
yeah, that is huge. Many veterans are searching for something, and what that is, it kind of varies, but a lot of times doesn't, because whether it's a hobby or extra income or education or a community, like I've mentioned, that's one thing that is cool. That's a part of my work for Purdue Extension, to equip them with those resources and outlets to be able to pursue those endeavors, and AgrAbility to also equip, whether it's financially or physically, allowing someone to do the work that they were passionate about or are becoming passionate about. And so that's one thing that I've kind of seen, and it's been great to be able to actually meet needs in those spaces. So,
And we touched on AgrAbility a little bit, and we've had Joe Ricker on, and we've had Eileen Legault from the AgrAbility Tennessee group. But can you touch on a little bit about your work with AgrAbility? And many of those people are veterans themselves or have spouses who are veterans. How does AgrAbility support veteran farmers, and why? What does accessibility and adaptive approaches really mean?
yeah. Yeah. So, enhancing quality of life is huge for AgrAbility for veterans. That's one thing. We have weekly meetings for the AgrAbility project itself. And there's a common thread at those meetings that it's very clear that at the heart of it, it's allowing people to pursue their passions and making sure that there's no barrier for that. If it is a piece of equipment or financial situations, or even just a lack of resources, I think AgrAbility serves as a great um, catalyst for those things to make sure that they don't die out at the root. So I really have appreciated learning, even coming into my role, more of what the heart of AgrAbility is. And it's very evident that it's people focused and their quality of life, because we come into these meetings and they're talking about case by case basis of folks, that their struggles and even their triumphs, and trying to figure out how to meet these individual needs on a bigger level. So it's really neat for me to hear those conversations and to be a part of them and to help with the resources for them.
Yeah, and one thing that's, I think, interesting about AgrAbility is, one, you don't have to be a veteran to utilize. It could just be a disability that a civilian has, but then it could also be a veteran who doesn't have a service-connected disability. It's something that they've been in a motorcycle accident once they came home, or they've gotten some sort of, you know, chronic illness that has appeared after their service, and it can look like support for all different types of things. It doesn't have to be something even visible.
Mhm.
And it always seems like the team there is really willing to work with veterans, and nice to have advocates in your corner who are also very well connected to all different groups, because there usually is a solution out there, even if you haven't found it yourself. So I like that AgrAbility seems to really bring in all different resources, from extension to other nonprofits across the board, and that makes it a stronger program.
For sure.
And you've been really helpful and integral in this state meeting that's coming up. So we're calling it the state meeting, but it's the Veterans in Farming, and in stands for Indiana. So Veterans in Farming, although veterans from all over the Midwest are totally welcome, and you don't even have to be a veteran to attend. But the term state meeting is basically, it's a 1 day conference. And you've been heading up the agenda and helping with speakers. What excites you most about this event, and why do you think gatherings like this matter for veterans and military families and beginning farmers?
Yeah, I'm super excited because there will be quite a few Purdue Extension individuals speaking at this event, but there are also just a bunch of resources that are going to come out of this. There's an individual, Kelly Court, I think that was how he pronounced his last name, but he's the horticulturalist at Newfields in Indianapolis. And he'll be talking about the introduction to therapeutic horticulture. And his father was a veteran, and he has a super interesting story and how he got to be where he is now, and even just having ties to a veteran in his life and talking about how it's affected him, and even having some traumas of his own, just being the son of a veteran. It'll be super beneficial for even veterans to hear. Sometimes I think we get into this mindset that's like, we're the only ones affected by our service, and that's just not true. And so it's he'll be a super interesting person to listen to that day. But I'm also just excited to be gathered together with other veterans. I went to the Shipshewana gathering, and it was so good to talk with other people. Anytime, I'm a huge proponent of community. I'm sure that's coming out of this conversation, but I just love getting together with people because when we're alone, it's so easy to think the worst about yourself or about other people. And I think when we get together and we share perspectives and listen to others' stories and where they've come from and how they got to where they are, I think it inspires us in a new way. And so I am it's great to do something new every once in a while. So if folks are on the fence about coming, I would just highly suggest that you just go ahead and register, and it's going to be a good day. I think it whether you take something away from it or not, I um I just think it'll be good to be surrounded by people that are like-minded, or maybe not. Maybe you'll meet someone that has some different beliefs and challenges yours, and that always helps you to solidify where you stand with things too. So I'm just excited to be in the same room with a bunch of veterans and get to talk about farming and um, uh, many other things. I'm looking at this list of topics right now. We've got beginning beekeeping and the introduction to therapeutic horticulture, gardening on less than an acre, growing cut flowers, SARE resources. So there's something for everyone in this meeting, I think, coming up.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. There's a lot of good engaging classes. I think the permaculture ones. I'm excited for John Clark, the speaker. He's an author and big sort of small farm regenerative ag advocate. So that's exciting. Um, for veterans who are sort of curious about farming and want to kind of dive into the resources that you provide, how can extension be a resource for them as they sort of figure out their path? What would be a good way for them to get in touch with their local extension agent if they're
Yeah.
outside of your region?
Yeah, for sure. Great question. I would first, if you're just trying to figure out your goals, I would recommend just sitting down and kind of mapping out your short and long-term goals. And even if that sounds kind of daunting, just kind of writing out what you're thinking right now, and maybe even just some limitations that you have, maybe some sticking points that you might need some additional help working through, and even questions you have, so that when you do hopefully connect with your local extension educator, you can look them up online, just searching your Purdue Extension and then your county. And so then when you do connect with them, you're able to kind of talk through those things. And extension educators are always willing to have that conversation to work through what your plans are, or maybe give you some direction and different resources. Or I'm always willing to talk through those things as well as the Extension Veteran Farmers Coordinator. I'm happy to sit down on a phone call or a Zoom, or if we're close to East Central Indiana, maybe we can meet in person too, to just kind of map out where you're going or what you're wanting to do. Because again, some are just looking for a hobby, some are looking for something more produced out of that, so like a job. But we're always happy to sit down with folks interested in farming, and Purdue Purdue Extension actually has a beginning farmer course that is helpful for just thinking about things that you may not have thought of on your own. So, yeah, you're welcome to contact me or your local extension educator, and I'm sure we can help you get something figured out.
Well, I really thank you for joining us today and for sharing your experience and the work you're doing to support veteran farmers and military families. And this episode of the Vet Farm Network podcast is brought to you by Addie's Orchard, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting military veterans and their families through meaningful agricultural opportunities. To learn more about veterans in farming, including details about the state meeting, visit vetsinfarming.com. You can also find us on our Facebook and Instagram page. Thanks for listening, and until then, farm on.